joining us today in today's meeting. So my name is Yvonne, and I'm for today's. Yes, as usual, we pray in my local language. It's called Kinyarwanda. So let's pray. Uwiteka Mana nziza, igitare cy'amahanga, turagushimye turaguhimbaje. Komeza ubane natwe, komeze twigaragariza mu byo turi gukora byose, uduhe umugisha. Tusabe twambaje mu izina rya Yesu Kristo. Amen. Yes, that was my prayer in my local language. We are going to start off with our today's speakers. We have speakers from different countries. Yes, we are going to have our first speaker, Mulesuku Joseph from South Sudan. Yes, Joseph, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you, Yvonne.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you. You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And today, first of all, I'm Resuk Joseph from South Sudan. At the moment, I am living in Uganda, working at with the refugees, building peace, doing training of community volunteers for conflict resolution. And so that's what I do at the moment. But today, I would like to talk particularly on the question of what do we really need to do as African people in order to solve our problems. And one of our biggest problems is the problem of lack of peace. That is war. First, before I go to that, I want to say there are 4 important areas that if we as a people should really take our destiny into our hands, we must be in full control. The political arena, and the second is the economic arena. We have to control our businesses on the continent. And then we also need to control our food, that is agriculture. Okay. And lastly, our media information. And connecting all this should be technology and science. Now, I believe that if we as African people really want total control of our affairs so that we cannot be dictated upon, so that we can partner with others on equal footing, we need to first and foremost enlighten our population. So this is a program of education. Okay. Those who feel that they have been called or enlightened enough to show the way, the first step is to enlighten our population. Second is to build enlightened and patriotic leaders who will then lead this enlightened population in a project, okay, of emancipation. A project that will create unity among the people, that will lead to peace and then prosperity. And thirdly, which is my final proposition, is that then we will need to enact laws and policies that will lay the framework, okay, that creates unity, peace, and prosperity. Okay, we all know as African people that our populations have been really terribly divided based on tribes, based on religion, based on regions, right? And because of this, we are so much busy fighting over small things, okay, when actually we are living the bigger things. And that is what makes us susceptible, because our people cannot be able to vote sometimes wise leaders because they don't belong to their tribes or because they don't belong to their religions. And in so doing, we find that it's difficult for us to come together and work for a common project. Okay. Another problem is that it makes it easy for our people to be divided because they are not enlightened. They don't know that there are many reasons why we should work together rather than actually work against each other. And so people outside our societies can easily find people whom they can use to destroy our unity and therefore making it very difficult for us to work on a common project. Okay, and that's why we are unable to unite. And we also know, though we can say that we need enlightened populations, there has to always be a place for a leader. A population, no matter how wise it is, if there is no enlightened leadership, there is nowhere that population can go. And that's why we need to create leaders who are not there because they want to, who don't have selfish interest in leadership, particularly in politics, but they are there to sacrifice for the people. They are there with the primary motive of making the conditions of their people better. And the purpose or the main target of this leader should be to create laws and policies that safeguard the interests of the people, that will create a ground for unity and for peace. And I think those are the most important things that if we really want to emancipate ourselves as a people, as a continent, we need to focus on the enlightenment of the population. We need to focus on building enlightened and patriotic leaders, and then we need to embark on creating laws and policies that ensure the unity, the peace, and the prosperity of our people. Thank you very much. I am because we are. God bless
you. Yes, thank you very much, Joseph. I am because we are. Thank you for that wonderful report. Yes, up next we're going to have our brother Fikimbia from Zimbabwe. And also, we are also live from Facebook. If you have any question and you're following us on Facebook, you can just write it in the comment section, then I'll be able to answer you. Yes, Fikimbia, you can unmute yourself.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
Yes. Yes, we can hear you. You're welcome.
Thank you. Today, my topic is the history of Pan-African movement. Its key figures such as Kwame Nkrumah and W.E.B. Du Bois, and its impact on African unity. Good afternoon, good evening to everyone, depending on where we are. Pan-Africanism can be said to have its origins in the struggles of the African people against enslavement and colonialism or colonization. And this struggle
Yes, Afiki, can you hear us? Yeah, I think they're having some network issues. Yes, Afiki, can you hear us? Oh, yes, they're having some network issues. In the meantime, we're going to have our brother Omar from the Gambia. Yes, Omar, can you hear us? You can unmute yourself. Yes, Omar, can you hear us? You can unmute yourself. Yes, I can see that our brother Afiki just came back. Yes, Afiki, can you hear us? They are having some network issues. Yes, we are going to continue with our brother Amazing Grace from Malawi. Yes, Amazing Grace, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me yourselves?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Greetings, team. Today I'm presenting on the challenges faced by Africans in promoting Pan-African unity including the borders. Without taking much of your time, I just hope to give an overview of what is Pan-Africanism, of which our common goal is the unity of Africans and the elimination of colonialism and white supremacy from the continent. Some of the aims for us is to create a sense of brotherhood and collaboration among all people of Africa, African descent, both in Africa, and those residing abroad outside our continent. Some of the goals include attaining the economic freedom for Africans, education, that is eradicating illiteracy, end slavery, and white out colonialism from our beautiful continent. In reference to that, I have to take back to Marcus Garvey and the fathers of Pan-Africanism. They had it in their mind that we Africans should be economically stable, economically strong, financially stable, so that we can sustain ourselves and compete with the imperialists. So that's why right from the beginning, our founders found it necessary that as Africans, we need to deal with this economic challenge. For example, as today it can be witnessed that most African countries are being deemed inferior to the whites because for everything, like my country, Malawi, for everything we depend on aid and so forth. In this case, it is difficult for us to pass our message of Pan-Africanism to people globally, or to those who intend to get the benefits of it. So if we were like African countries, if we were financially stable and economically stable, we could have dwelled much and focused much on what Africanism is, on what African culture is. We could have been ourselves and promoting our own values. Today it's difficult to do that because we hear, for example, if a head of state is being Africanist in their day-to-day discharge of duties, we hear sort of these strong African countries, European countries coming on, trying to bring confusion, trying to bring war into our countries, to bring disturbances, insecurities. All these things are happening because we depend on them economically. So our founders really wanted us to be economically stable. So as Pan-Africanists, as a board, as a movement, the challenge that we are facing there to discharge our duties, one of them is the lack of financial power. One of the problems I've already suggested is economic challenge. The people who are discharging this message to, some of them are illiterate. Like, for example, here in Malawi, there are villages. There are people who doesn't know the difference, or up to date don't know that an African can be superior than a white person. But it's these white people who go there and meet them face to these organizations and talk to them and give them all sorts of good things. As a result, it's difficult for them to hear a mind from an African person. It's like, what are you going to tell me? You and I are both poor. So we need to provide this civic education. For example, these calls, if we have this calls in our communities, we have channels, we have Malawi, we have got its call, Uganda, Gambia, Zimbabwe. So if you have these calls in communities, you have the opportunity, if you have the economy or financial muscle to go into these streams and talk to these people, give them this message that we get here, pass to them the message that we hear from Nana, that we hear from our history teachers here, it will be great. I'll conclude by suggesting how I found myself a member of Pan-African history class. I have attended a class, a course about Africa, about Pan-Africanism, where I was taught about the Kwame Nkrumahs, their vision, the Mugabes. It was so interesting that so many youths at the University of Malawi where I was bought the idea, and I bought the idea, and I found it necessary that I should be part of this team so that I can be enlightened. So the challenge is education. The challenge is economic, financial challenge. If we can structure ourselves that we pass this message to the communities, we can carry them to the communities, not only on these Saturdays, or maybe we can sit on during the weeks or a month twice, so passing this message. I think it can help to put the message of Pan-Africanism across. I will continue presenting on this one next week, but for today, let me stop here, Yvonne.
Good afternoon to you all. My name is Abubakar Makano from the Gambia. I'm going to read my reports. This report was supposed to be present since last week due to circumstances. That's why I could not give this report. Okay, are you getting?
Yes, we can hear you. You can.
Yeah. So the history of Pan-Africanism is key figure such as Kwame Nkrumah, W.E.B. Du Bois, it is an impact on African unity. That is the topic of my discussion today with you. When we talk about the Pan-Africanist idea, it was first begun in circulations of the mid-19th century in the United States, led by Africans from the Western Hemisphere. The most important early Pan-Africanists were Martin Glennis, Alexander Crummell, both African Americans, and Edward West Indians. Those early voices for Pan-Africanists emphasized the between the African Black peoples in the United States. But Delaney, who believed that the peoples could not prosper alongside whites, advocate the idea of the African Americans should separate from the United States to establish their own nation. But Crummell and Blairins, both contemporaries of the Delaney's missionary zeals, the two believe that convert of civilization inhabitants there. Although the Delaneys and Blairins are important and true father of Pan-Africanism, was the influential thinker of W.E.B. Du Bois throughout the long career of Du Bois, was consistent advocate of the study of Pan-Africanism in 20th century. The most prominent, most scholars who study his statement made of the 20th century. Although from the 20th century is among the most the prominent Black intelligent advocate Pan-Africanists were both whom train lines of 1930s, 1959, the Podmore was leading the Pan-Africanist idea, influence on Leo and Jomo Kenyatta in Kenya of importance of Pan-Africanism influenced by Du Bois. By the 1940s, the American African leadership of the movement received the African takings the The lead that was due to the part of the leftist and communist sympathies of the Pan-Africanist advocates in the 70s, early 50s, United States made of red scarf. When the African with the confederations of the sympathizers were activists, most important European colonists of Pan-Africanism distinguished the African Unite movement in the elections of 19. Many African the Pan-African cultural remarch, the news of the force in the United States late of 16th century to 70 as one of manifestations of the Black Power movement. By the early 19th century had relatively common African Americans investigate their African culture roots, adopts of the African form, culture practice in African style dress. So I am because we are. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I am because we are. Thank you for that wonderful report. Up next, we are going to have our brother from Zambia, Emmanuel Muke. Yes, Emmanuel, can you hear us? You can unmute yourself. Yes, Emmanuel, can you hear us?
Good afternoon. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. I can hear you. You're welcome.
Okay. Like my name is Manuel Moke from Zambia. I am because we are. Yeah, my presentation today, I'm going to talk about the idea of Pan-Africanism. Yeah, so in my short presentation, I'm going to talk about how Africa was supposed to be free and how we're supposed to. And in the early days where Africa was colonized, there were a lot of things which happened, and a lot of sellings and a lot of unnecessary things happened. So the whole idea of about this Pan-Africanism in the early days was to decolonize Africa so that Africans can be capable of doing their own things in their own environment. Yeah, like we need to have our own freedom. We need to have the choice of Pan-Africanism. You know, we need to stand strong on our own. Then we need to encourage the organizations which are doing Pan-Africanist advocacy to continue and raise their voices so that we stand and we advocate for what is right, and we advocate for who we are as blacks. Yeah, so this one doesn't matter where you are, it doesn't matter the country you are coming from, as long as you stand on the spirit of fighting, you stand on the interest and the best of Africans. So you are not supposed to worry to say you are in maybe other continents, or maybe you are an advocate who is in the diaspora, or maybe you are in Ghana, but as long as you are talking about the life of a black child, the life of an African child, you have the right. You have the right to advocate for what is right for the black person. Yeah. So in the best interest of Africans, we live the life. We live the life to say we need to stand up and live the life of Ubuntu. We need the word Ubuntu to be everywhere. We need the word Ubuntu to cater the whole Africa. We need this word to reach all the parts of Africa so that even our younger generation are going to raise their feet on the Ubuntu we are raising today. We need to make sure to say our youths understands and they are also recognizing to say what Kwame Nkrumah did was to fight for the freedom of our freedom of this generation we are enjoying. We need to tell them to say what Nelson Mandela, we need to tell them to say what Kenneth Kaunda was advocating for Ubuntu. So we need to reach the message of I am because you are, because we are Africans. We need to recognize ourselves to say I am because you are, and then you are because I am. This is the spirit we need. This is the spirit of Pan-Africanism. We need to stand strong and advocate for what is right for an African child. This is just what I have to share, and stay blessed. Thank you very much. I am because you are.
Yes, thank you very much, Emmanuel Muke. Thank you for reminding us that we need more practice of Ubuntu. And also, you reminded us that I am because we are, like it's our slogan, but it really means a lot. Yes, thank you very much. I am because we are. Yes, up next, you're going to have our brother, Omar Sanyang. Yes, Omar, can you hear us? You can unmute yourself. Yes, I think, yes. Can you hear us?
Yeah, hello everyone. Yes, you are audible.
Yes, welcome.
All right, thank you very much, everyone that is here today. And I would like to start with the saying that is, I am because we are, and we are because I am. I would like to appreciate each and every one of us who is here today to listen and learn from each other as Africans. And we know that the continent can only rise when we are ready to fight for the country. I am going to talk about briefly the little history that I know from the Pan-African struggle and also the challenge when first and foremost, I would like to make us all remember that between the year 1900 to 1940, Africa was totally dominated. And those who were taking control of the material resources of the continent saw the need to take control of territory. And when that happened, the continent is divided into parts where we have our own countries and they give us artificial boundaries that we are now using as boundaries to our various countries. When we talk about the challenges that Africans are facing in and outside Africa, it's a very wide thing that we have to talk about. First and foremost, we will first have to talk about the cultural diversity of people that are living within Africa. We understand that Africa is a land of individuals who are inhabitants in the land, most especially in our African regions. We understand that we are having different cultures, but looking at those cultures, we will understand that our cultures are more or less similar. Let me take you back to the Gambia, where you have the Jola, probably that is where I am from, and then the Mandinka, the Wolof, the Sarawuli, and then the Kula. You understand that pre-colonial era, our people were having similar, if not the same, but similar cultural practices. When we talk about kingdoms or chieftains that were in the land, you'll understand that our people were using the same thing. We all have our respective things. In Mandinka, we call it mansa. In Wolof, we call it boo, so on and so forth. So you understand that this is a land that truly needs to realize our potential. But how is it that the land is going to realize our potential when we are having leaders that are not traveling to the meet and then ask for this and sacrifice? It is very sad and disheartening that African brothers and African sisters are facing racism in the other parts of the land. What is our government, what is our leaders doing about it? What is the people doing about it? We need to remember what Osagio Dr. Kwame Nkrumah said. We need to remember what Patrice Emery Lumumba said. Of course, we also need to remember African leaders met at Addis Ababa. What they were discussing was African unity. What should we do as African people, and what should we say as African people whenever or wherever we are? My honorable moderator is reminding me that my time is up. I would like to stop here and then say, I am because we are, and we are because I am. Thank you very much.
Yes, very much, Omar. I am because we are. Thank you for that wonderful report. Yes, time is not on our side. You're going to have the next speaker. Yes, Steve Nambi, can you hear us?
Thank you so very much. Good afternoon, good evening.
Yes, good afternoon.
Thank you so very much. My name is Nambi Steve from Zambia. Yeah, and I'm a student actually. I am because I love Black people actually, indeed. Yeah, so today's my presentation, I'm gonna talk about the challenges faced by Pan-Africans in promoting Pan-Africanism. One, European groups fought the activity of Pan-Africanists. E.g. will talk about how they did to Marcus Garvey. They arrested him and convicted him with fraud. I mean, yeah. So the other thing is it was very difficult for Africans to participate in the African affairs, since many of the countries were being looked, or let me say they were in colonial regime by that time. So it was very difficult for these people to come together as Africans and fought for what we deserve or make a right decision as Africans. The other thing is due to lack of economic empowerment and lack of education. Many projects, or let me say the Pan-African projects, never succeeded. Like my previous speaker said, it was very difficult because some of these people, the people who came to colonize us, they're the people who used to bring what we wanted. Forgetting, we as Africans, forgetting to say we are the people owing diamond, owing minerals, different minerals, but we gave access to these people to use us because of what they used to bring to us. Little things they used to bring to us made us to realize to say we can't join the Pan-Africanism and voice out in order for us to be independent. The other thing is illiteracy and ignorance amongst the African leaders. Some people never used to appreciate this effort as Africans. Maybe for them to join in and advocate for Africanism or one Africa, they never had that capacity because they didn't know the importance of Pan-African. And then the other thing is the movement was restricted to African continent after the independence in 1960s. This became a very big challenge for our leaders to proceed or to achieve what they wanted to achieve, because we were restricted. The project was restricted to just African continent, not to go anywhere. And then there was a division amongst the African leaders after independence. The African leaders, some of them didn't realize it. Like I said in the previous point, to say most of them never realized that we need to be independent as Africans. we never thought, they never thought about how important it is to be independent and to be united as Africans. So there was a division because others got their independence and others were still under colonial regime, and it became a very big challenge because they all know that unity. Yeah, and then the other thing is the Africans, the European powers denomination of the international media was used to water down the importance of Africanism by spreading the negative propaganda. The last but not the least is a lack of venues or to hold their conferences, more especially before 1957. Africans were denied to have conferences here in Africa because of these people used to colonize us. I love Black people. Thank you so very much. I am because we are.
Yes, very much. I am because we are. Thank you for that wonderful report. That was our brother Steve Nambi from Zambia. Yes, up next we're going to have our sister Binta Jallo from the Gambia. Yes, Binta.
Good afternoon to others, good evening to others, and good morning to others. I greet you all.
Yes, you're welcome.
Okay. I think my audio is working well, right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I am because we are. Okay. Yeah. So, oh my God. Okay. It's an honor to be part of this platform for today also, to present in a very important topic, the Pan-Africanist movement issue. Okay. So I want to present on what are the things that is hindering all Pan-Africanists to achieve the word itself and its meaning in a betterment of achievement. The main aspect that is hindering the movement of this Pan-Africanism from our leaders who are standing in the front line to fight for Pan-Africanism, all is this white supremacy. The Western influence is really affecting this main aspect of achieving the Pan-African. What they do is to get into our people. Any country that you have a Pan-Africanist leader standing for the unity of Africa, what they do is to get in and then try to bring chaos among us to fight one another. So with that is hindering the movement of Pan-Africanists. What our forefathers were trying to do in Pan-Africanism to achieve that movement is still and on yet to be achieved because of the influence of this Western world. The Western couldn't allow us to do so. And we as Blacks, we as Africans, we are yet to understand that fact. Our biggest enemies are the Western world. And still we are allied with them. In this aspect, to achieve this movement of Pan-Africanism, we have to respect our own indigenous languages. Being here, we are all communicating in English. We are still hunt with our colonizers because we're using this aspect. The way we can achieve this Pan-African movement and the ideology of this Pan-Africanism is to respect our own indigenous languages. Doing so, okay, I've been reminded that the time is almost, okay, being so, we have to respect our languages to be able to defeat this whole ideology of Pan-African. We at least have to choose a language that's going to be communicated the whole throughout Africa. Because when we communicate in our languages, we'll be able to respect our own cultures. We'll be able to defeat this. They go in and bring problems for us, and then our leaders who have the mindset of fighting for Africa unity, saying that they are how they call it again, this word, they subhanallah, I forget the word itself, that our leaders are very not totalitarian even, but they are oh, I forget the word itself. So this is what they're going to put on us, like what happened to Libya. Who was Gaddafi? Gaddafi was standing for the Pan-African. That movement that Gaddafi was standing for, what they do, they end up killing him. Our leaders, whoever stand for the word Pan-African, they either kill the person or they try to manipulate his people that he's governing to kill the concept of the Pan-African issue and the Pan-African movement. Okay, sorry, I wish I can talk more, but my time is up. I greet you all and I love all Black people, wherever we are. Give a big up to all of you. I am because we are. Love you all. Assalamu alaikum.
Yes, thank you very much. That was our sister from the Gambia, Binta Jalu. Thank you for that wonderful report. I am because we are. Up next, we are going to have the Pan-African healthcare class with Nana Akua. Yes, you know that she likes seeing Black beautiful faces while she's giving lectures. So you can turn on your camera to receive a shout out from her. Yes, you're welcome, Nana Akua.
Thank you. Good day. You actually don't have to today because I am still driving back home, so I won't be able to see you. And I want to keep with how I normally do and show my camera, even though you see me in the car. I'll be home momentarily though. But greetings, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I can see Yvonne. I can only see you, Yvonne. Hey, Yvonne. So today we are talking about stress release and how to manage stress. And when I get in front of the computer, I will pull up that. I did already pull that up earlier this morning, but I had to go out for an appointment. If Yvonne, you happen to be able to find the packet, I think it is packet 3 or week 3. Stress release or the stress management portion, that would be great. If not, I can just talk through it. But we know that we have to always start with, and I like what the sister was saying. Let me just digress for a second. They do the same with anyone who is trying to incorporate holistic health and natural healing. So just as freedom fighters and people who are fighting to end racism and liberate themselves and be independent and free, they either come up missing or just straight assassinated, right? They're doing the same with people who are holistic practitioners, naturopaths, naturopathic doctors, traditional healers. And you know it's bad when they are even doing it to the white people. So you're finding white holistic doctors dead. And so when the enemy is really after you and are against what it is you're speaking and teaching and sharing with people, it can be dangerous. But that is, I guess, the definition of courage, right? It is doing something despite your fear or knowing that it will meet resistance, right? So, and one of my middle names is in Zingba, which is she is beauty and courage. And so I warmly embrace that because that is what it is we have to do, is doing a thing that we know is good and right and just, despite our personal fears for it or our family or community fears or angst about it. So I really, that resonated with me when the sister was just speaking about that. So we know to first deal with a problem, we have to identify it, we have to define it, we have to know what it is. And so in terms of stress, we know that stress is something that is it causes dis-ease. It adds tension or strain to a situation. We know that it is, in fact, an energy that distorts sort of our situation, our condition, and it brings dis-ease. And there are many other definitions of stress, but we know that this is one of those things that it can cause disruption or break our peace in regards to our emotional well-being, our physical well-being, our financial well-being, our mental well-being, relationships. It will cause relational problems and that sort of thing. So we know that there are many stressors that we will face in life. And so we have to be able to address those. Let me go off camera for a second so y'all don't have to see me running into the house. But we know that we have to identify these situations, these things that cause us stress. So what I'd like you is identify, as we're sitting here and I'm running up, start thinking about things that cause you stress in your life. If it is work, if it's family, if it's school, if it's issues that we face in the world as Black people, you know, if it's the racism, if it's the Afrophobia, if it's any of these things that we know cause stress and strain and dis-ease, we first have to identify those things. If we know that our lives are stressful because we have multiple things to do, before we can handle that, we have to identify that so that we can then say, oh, well, maybe I'm stressed because I'm doing too much and not in a timely manner. Maybe I don't know, need to get up earlier. I need to reroute my schedule, you know, wake up earlier, go to bed earlier so that I can wake up earlier and be able to manage my schedule each day a little better. So all of these things are possibilities, but not without first figuring out what is causing the problem. And can y'all tell them how to shape? I'm breathing hard. Okay, when I'm in the computer, let me just get to. So we know that there are a number of things that we can do to, in general, manage stress. You know, we may listen to music and create a certain environment with certain sounds. This would be considered sound therapy. We may also go out in nature. This is one of my favorite things. I love waterfalls. I love, let me see if I can join here. Whether you like streams or beaches or any of these things, we know that there are situations where you can find a space. I'm trying to get in, Yvonne. I don't know if it's on yet. Do you see me? Oh, well, my thing is still spinning. I'm trying to join online now.
Recording in progress.
Here I am. I hate for my hair to get wet. Let me take my hair in. It's raining here. So that was a whole thing there. Okay, so yeah, so we know that we can identify things that bring us joy. For me these days, it's all about what will bring joy, what will allow for, and can I search for something while I'm sharing the screen? Is it gonna then show it, Yvonne? It won't, searching for it, right?
Yes.
Which number is it? And which number is it? And you probably couldn't find it. Or could you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's on my screen, but all you seeing is probably still in my files, or no?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so let me stop sharing and try it again. Because now it is up. Now can you see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Very good. So I worked through that. Very good. So, so again, a state of mental or physical tension or something that induces it, pressure or strain that tends to distort a body. So we kind of went over that already. I like sort of the textbook definitions of things. So, but just doing it while moving and driving, I think I did pretty good. So symptoms of stress. So we know that this can cause depression, difficulty sleeping, extreme tiredness or fatigue, feelings of anger, resentment, absence from work obligations and other obligations, impatience, irritability. Physical symptoms may be tension headaches, sweaty palms, stomach or intestinal disturbances, muscle aches, for no apparent reason. You might have a change in your appetite where you are either having an increased appetite or a decreased appetite. Just sort of in terms of spiritual or emotional situations, you may lose your pleasure or your sense of joy in life. You may have performance anxiety. These are all signs or symptoms of stress. And so we first, again, have to be able to identify, okay, I'm really stressed. And I've spoken about this before, where I've just had to, in my life, had to be able to not only identify, but verbalize it. You know, sometimes you have to be able to say to your family, your mate, your friends, your community, even your coworkers, that I'm stressed. Okay, I'm feeling a little stressed today, or I'm working through this, or sometimes just being able to verbalize these things, I find it freeing and empowering because I've released it, I've let it go. Okay, you know why I might be a little off in terms of my usual disposition, or you may know why something may not be as good as it usually is. It's okay to say, okay, things are a little hectic right now, or I'm a little stressed, or got a lot going on. Now, these are things that you'll find that people will say, and I think that that's perfectly fine because we're all human, and some people will have difficulty admitting, okay, that they're stressed or they're having some kind of strain or strife in their lives, but we are all having a human experience. And this is perfectly acceptable. This, I think, makes us be more human towards others by being able to see it or identify it or receive it when that person says it, so that you can have more grace. And I think that that's very important. Having grace with people, really being kind when people express that they're having sort of an issue. Again, I find this not a weakness or a vulnerability, but really empowering, because I think that that is what is most God-like, to be able to empathize with someone when they're working through an issue. So let's talk about some ways of handling stress. I usually go to this handout, which I do think is on the next page, but let's just talk about some basic things. We know that we can exercise tension away, right? We may join a health club or a gym. We may take a yoga class. We may take a Tai Chi or a Qigong class or some kind of meditative movement class, or we may take some kind of step aerobics class or something where we're physically working the pain out and exercising the tension away. We may also listen to a podcast or read an article or watch some videos on how to do effective communication, conflict resolution, things like that when we have to deal with negative people. The fact is, not all people are good. Not all people are kind or generous or loving or joyful people. Some people are mean and hateful and will just do all that they can to disrupt, right? So we have to be able to learn how to deal with negative people. And of course, the quick answer may be to just cut them off or to move out of the way or not deal with them. But we know that in certain situations, we can't always do that. So we may have to, you know, of course, you can limit how much energy you give them, but you also may have to learn what things to say, you know, how to phrase how you say, how to communicate with them, or even if it's a matter of how to communicate with them as little as possible, making statements that kind of shorten, you know, the communication with someone that's difficult or negative. You may choose to join a community or social or recreational group or club. Volunteering is a great way to relieve stress. It kind of gets you out of your head and out of yourself and your own circumstances, especially when you're focusing on community service and helping someone else that may not be in a great situation. That I think, again, is empowering, that can help you kind of become a little more grateful of your situation and maybe help you change your perspective on whatever may, you know, be causing whatever strain or tension in your life. You may also learn how to express yourself in different ways. If it's the way that you are usually used to, or if you have to create a different way to express yourself and to be able to release your frustrations. You may talk to someone, you may write your feelings down, write in a journal. If you're a hands-on person or a kinesthetic type of person, you might want to use your hands, draw something, build something, take on a personal project at your home. These are all ways that you can express yourself. People who are artistic, you know, they sing or rap, you may find that that is a good way. You know, write your own song or your own rap or your own poem, and get out your feelings. This, you know, is a good option for you as well. You may also choose to just reassess. I was kind of quickly given that example earlier when I was trying to get into the house, but reassess or reevaluate your patterns, your scheduling, your activities, devise a new plan, right? So you may have to schedule things out a little differently. Certain things you may be able to do during the week or during the morning or the evening, or it's better to do during the weekend, or do it when you're not having to go to work or class. You know, just reassess what your pattern, what your routine is, and that can be freeing and cause a little less frustration. Instead of trying to do bills during the week just because that was payday, you may wait till the next day when it's the weekend and you don't have to go to work, and you can kind of sit and, you know, plan out and map out things a little easier without some of the other daily stressors of say a weekday. Another option is to practice your spiritual beliefs. Tap into that innermost power and strength that you have. Make sure that you carve out time to pray, to meditate, to go to church or to mosque or to the shrine, whatever spiritual place. It could be just your sacred space in your home as well. Some people, it's in their car. You may have to spend a little extra time when you pull up at work and before you go in, you might have to say a prayer. You might have to, you know, do some deep breathing exercises to kind of prepare yourself for the day. Or you may need to decompress. And of course, we know not everyone drives. So even if it's not in your car, even if you've taken some kind of public transport and you just have to sit outside someplace before even going into your home and decompress from your work day or from your day in school, and just sort of get ready for that next phase of, okay, let me go in and now prepare dinner or prepare to fix whatever might need, you know, repairing in the home. But figuring out when you can go inward is key, whether it's something you can do on a daily basis or something you do at least one day out of the week, to just focus on yourself and tap into your inner power. And then, of course, nurturing, which I think kind of goes along with the previous one. Nurture and pamper yourself. You can always set time out to do what really brings you joy. It could be getting your hair done or your hair cut, or it could be going for a walk or a bike ride. It could be getting your nails done. It could be getting a massage or a facial. It could be setting time aside to give yourself yourself a foot rub, or, you know, do some self massage on your legs or your shoulders or your hands. But really setting aside time to pamper yourself. You could give yourself a facial with some green clay and some herbs and do your own facial. You can get a foot pan or basin and soak your feet with some Epsom salt or with some essential oils, or you can put some fresh flowers in it. Any number of things to really just treat yourself and set time aside to actually make sure that you're okay and that you get what you deserve. And you do deserve the best. You do deserve to have peace and comfort and not just have to work, pay bills, take care of children, go to class, you know, all of these types of things. The last thing listed here are just some relaxation exercises. This will just relieve some of the physical tension in the body. You may clench different parts of your body. You can clench and then relax your jaw. You may wrinkle up, right, your forehead and then relax it. This can take some of that physical stress away. You may stand on like your tiptoes, right? And then relax your shins. So this is causing some muscle contraction and expansion and release so that you can relieve stored up tension in the body. So there's so many things that we can do. I'm going to scroll past this, but we know that stress causes so many issues. We know that it affects some of our glands in our bodies, the adrenal glands, the pituitary glands. So we know that stress is a physical problem, but we know that it impacts the mental, the spiritual, the emotional, and all of those that I mentioned at the top of the class. So there are many ways to do it in terms of relieving stress. As an herbalist, you know that I don't want to skip over using herbs to relieve stress. We know that there are certain herbs like lavender and hops and lemon balm and valerian, orange blossoms, St. John's wort, hawthorn, hibiscus. There's so many herbs that we know have sedative or nervine effects that will help calm and relax the nervous system and help your body physically and even your mind release stress. There are certain foods like nuts and seeds that also soothe the nerves. And so these are good to add into your daily routine if you're feeling stressed. Yawning is also a good way. Who would have thought, right? Yawning, right? Some people, we just do it involuntarily when we're tired, right? But we know that yawning can help you relax by stretching those muscles. It's like those relaxation exercises on the previous page. We know that it helps to stretch the muscles. It increases oxygen intake and it releases tension. So yawn really loudly, stretch your arms, you know, raise your shoulders, roll your shoulders, just make it a whole body experience when yawning to just get as much relief and to relieve and release all the tension that you can. I talked a little bit about self-massage. Again, your lower back, your neck, your shoulders, your feet. These are all areas that you can reach, that you can touch yourself. So if we are not able to because of finances, because of scheduling, because of the lack of accessibility, if you're not able to go out and get a massage, we can do self-massage and allow our bodies to feel better. Same thing with reflexology. This is sort of a specialized type of therapeutic foot massage where you are stimulating the different parts of the hands and feet that correspond to different parts of the body. So this can cause a lot of relaxation and relieve a lot of stress as well. Perhaps next week we'll talk a little bit about how to emotionally release and how to balance our emotions with the flower essences that you see mentioned here. If you've sat in before, you know this is one of my favorite topics. So this is not something I can speak about in a minute or two. About the a few earlier, and we know that there are some of the ones I mentioned. Now, the great thing about herbs is you will find those that will not only do one or two things, it may do 10 different things. And so usually a good place to start is an herb that will address a number of issues that you have. So if you, for example, are feeling stressed, but you're also having some headaches or some digestive issues, you're depressed, you would choose that herb or that herbal combination that will address all of those issues, right? So lemon balm, for example, we know that this is good just as a basic calming herb, but this is really great if you are specifically, right, angry or like in a rage. So not just, oh, I'm just overwhelmed with the day, but you're really angry about it, right? Lemon balm would be a better choice than some of the other herbs. But we also know in addition to that, that it'll help with heartburn, with gas, with bloating, with nausea. If you have stress-induced headaches and things of that nature, this is going to be a better option than, say, a chamomile or a skullcap, right? Hops, for example, we know that this is what is used in beer. So we know that this has a sedative effect. We know that it relaxes the nervous system, right? But it's excellent for sleep, well, for the same reasons, but specifically if you are having trouble sleeping or staying asleep, or if you like to dream more fully and brightly, this is one of those that you would add in terms of not only getting good sleep and relaxing, but being able to sort of dream and really, really be able to drift peacefully off to sleep and sleep well and peacefully. So these are just some of the herbs that affect the nervous system. Again, always figure out what other uses it can have, because God is so amazing. You can use one herb and address 2 or 3 or more conditions, and not just sort of your initial or your primary concern. So we'll talk next week about the flower essences, and then we'll talk about this personal care plan. Always having a plan of how to care for yourself and how to feel better or nurse yourself back to health is always a good option. And so we'll talk a little bit about creating a good healthcare plan. So felt like I just got here. But thanks for joining, and I'll see you back next week. And as always, I bid you good health and peace.
Yes, thank you very much, Nana Akua, for the wonderful lecture. I shared your email in the comment section. If there's someone who wants the healthcare handouts, they can reach out to you. Yes, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. The Pan-African class with Dr. Terry, right?
Hello,
Yes,
everyone. Hello,
Yes.
everyone. Okay, you'll see me in 1 second. Welcome to the Pan-African History and Organizing class. As you can see, I was actually on camera, but I just have to put it facing me and get positioned. So what I wanted to say before I get started, or a precursor to the lecture today, is that I'm going to do something that's a little off the beaten path as far as the syllabus says. I'm actually going to do a lecture on Malcolm X. And it dawned on me when I was preparing that I've never done a lecture on Malcolm X in the 3 years that we've been doing this, to the degree that you may think that he is not a proponent. So if you thought that, oh, okay, this curriculum, this syllabus includes the notable Pan-Africanists, where is Malcolm X? Now, I know in the chapter, Booker T. Washington, Pan-Africanism and Pan-Africanists, if you did read it, at the end, I do talk about the connection between Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X in terms of philosophy. However, I've never done a freestanding lecture on Malcolm X in terms of this particular course. So that is what I'm going to do today, but I'm going to give a little lecture, and then I'm going to share a video of an interview that Malcolm gave in 1964, shortly after his return from traveling the world, Africa notably, meeting with world leaders, and also making his Hajj, his pilgrimage to Mecca, as well. And I think this is one of the least popular interviews. So it would be good for us to see. And he addresses the relationship between the African world and so-called African Americans, regarding unity, regarding connection, regarding common struggle. So what we're still and what we're doing in terms of this organization, I Love Black People, and its mission to address racism and xenophobia. So, so I'm going to get started with that. And first I wanted to say this, is that most people's idea of Malcolm X in particular is wrong. I'm going to start with the punch. Most people's interpretation of the meaning of Malcolm X's life and work is what I would say incorrect. And it's incorrect for one key reason. Many have decided that Malcolm's story is a story of transformation. Even a great historian, Manny Marable, who wrote, I guess, what I would call sort of a slanderous book on Malcolm X, A Story of Reinvention. He talks about Malcolm as a transformative figure. And on the surface, you would think that that's good, that sounds good, that's great. Malcolm is representative of change and revolution. Manny Marable was not exactly trying to be flattering in giving that title. Actually, it's called Malcolm X, A Story of Reinvention. And he basically talks about Malcolm's life, reveals many things that he feels like was relevant, but essentially it's in an effort to malign the legacy of Malcolm X. Well, I argue in respect to that Malcolm's life was not a story of reinvention at all. It was a story of transformation. But even more, it was the story of Sankofa return. I should have my camera, okay. Yeah, all right, there we go. It's the story of return more than anything else. So look, I got my Malcolm X glasses, not intentionally, but so what I wanted to talk about as far as that's concerned is to give you this caveat to begin with. Malcolm X in particular, and I'm not going to give you the basic high school lecture in terms of Malcolm X was, born in at this time in this place. I'm going to give you what I would consider graduate level understanding his philosophy and his legacy. Malcolm X in particular was the seventh child in his family. He was born into a large family, but notably, Malcolm X was born into a family that was part of the UNIA, the Universal Negro Improvement Association. My lighting is super bad here. Okay, hold on. He was born into a family in the UNIA. And maybe if I, hold on. I don't know if that's any better. That might be better. Okay. He was born into a family that were members in the Universal Negro Improvement Association, led by Marcus Garvey. And his mother was a writer for the UNIA, and his father was an organizer for the UNIA, but also a preacher who would, combine his work in the UNIA and go around the United States and recruit. That being said, both of his parents at that moment in time were in the largest Black nationalist and Pan-Africanist movement the world has ever seen or the world would ever see. And this is notable because, listen, today we're not all on the same page about such matters. So to get two people who decide to have a family to be on the same page from the beginning is extraordinary. Okay. So when people say Malcolm, he reinvented himself in prison, he transformed himself in prison when he met, people who are in the nation, and his brother and sister contacted him and told him about the Nation of Islam. That simply is not true. Malcolm X is the story of return. Malcolm X is the story of Sankofa. He returned to that which he already knew and was his foundation. This is amazing to me that people have this analysis has not even occurred to them. Okay. The UNIA and some the Nation leader, the Nation of Islam's leader, Elijah Muhammad, has been documented as having been a member of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, initiated and established by Marcus Garvey. The organization, the Nation of Islam, is a religious organization with a Black nationalist orientation. However, it is a religious organization. It is not a Black nationalist organization. A lot of people don't get this. A lot of people don't understand this, but I'll give you a clue to uncover why I would say that. A religious organization, such as the church, such as the Nation of Islam, they have ministers and pastors. And everyone in the nation and the leadership is known as minister, right? This is a religious organization. And if one were to recall the history correctly, this was the key conflict, or one of the key conflicts, between Malcolm and Elijah Muhammad, which was that it is a religious organization and not a political organization. So Malcolm was instructed to stay out of politics. Okay? A Black nationalist organization is a political organization. That being said, there is a clear line from the origin of the UNIA, which was based on the Tuskegee model. If you read the chapter on Booker T. Washington, Pan-Africanism, Pan-Africanists, you know that Marcus Garvey and Booker T. Washington were in touch, initiated by Garvey. He writes Washington after the 1912 International Conference on the Negro and says that he has modeled his organization, the UNIA, after what? The Tuskegee model of sustainability. Hence, the desire to have businesses in various industries, okay? Providing services to Black people so that they do not have to consume from the establishment that exploits them. The Universal Negro Improvement Association, however, takes that concept to a whole nother level in addition to the sustainability model, and spreads all over the world through one key method, the Negro world, which was the only industry Garvey himself individually truly mastered using the printing press. Through that, he could print the Negro world. The Negro world could be found in every dock and port around the world where Black people and African people were in mass. There would be 47 chapters of the UNIA in the Western Hemisphere, and Malcolm's father would be one of the members of leadership in the UNIA, recruiting people. His mother, again, was a journalist in the UNIA. She would write and contribute to the Negro world and other printed productions by the UNIA. That being said, when it comes to Malcolm, he learns of the Nation of Islam while in prison through his brother. His brother Wilford can be seen in the film, the documentary, Make It Plain, stating that the nation was nothing new to them because they had come from a strict Garveyite household of somewhere like 8 children. And this order and this value of pride, race pride, Pan-Africanism, yes, unity for the purpose of eradicating oppression and exploitation, was already something they subscribed to. It wasn't a dormant philosophy. They were both active members in the UNIA and hence brought the parents together, okay? So Malcolm X has the foundation and the orientation and the values that would propel him into the life that he had. Now, did he go astray? Absolutely. That is a part of his development. He goes astray. He is a brilliant child. He's a brilliant mind in school. He is at the top of his class. However, his family faced personal tragedy because of their involvement in the movement. Malcolm's father would be murdered, some say by Klansmen, but at that time, any regular white male civilian could be a participant in what I would call gang activity that they would dub the Klan. So his father was murdered and killed in the local street with a local street car, and which is like those trains that run through cities on tracks, but they're above ground. So, or you could say it's like a bus or trolley that runs above ground. In some cities, like in Louisiana, they have the, I think in Pennsylvania, they have one running through, I guess, the main line. Anyway, point being is that his father was brutally murdered for his activity in the UNIA. This would leave his mother alone with something like 8 children, and she was unable to financially and mentally manage it. So the state authorities would come in and parcel her children out to foster care. And this is how Malcolm finds himself at a white school predominantly white school, where he still manages to rise to the top of his class. That being said, it would be shortly after that that, you know, he would be a teenager and have what we would call a street life, right? And so he's in Detroit, and then eventually he comes to New York. In between that time, he is incarcerated, and he does many things that were out of line with the way he was initially raised, okay? But there's something to be said for a good foundation, okay, in terms of who a person is. If you don't have a good foundation, you have nothing to return to. You have nothing to reclaim. And you know, your values and your foundation are who you are. So sometimes that can be handed to you by the situation and circumstance you're in, but also at the same time, that can be developed, right? So Malcolm had the fortunate situation of having grown up in, or at least having his formative years be in a two-parent household where both of his parents were ideologically aligned, not just aligned on the romantic side, but ideologically aligned in their political views and actively engaged in achieving political aims on an organizational level. Okay. So we know about the middle part because I think it's very publicized. If you even saw the film Malcolm, you know, which is not an actor, that's a dramatization, you know, that's Hollywood. The film done by Spike Lee called Malcolm, where Denzel Washington plays Malcolm. It's a good dramatization. Maybe the timeline to a degree is okay, but in terms of understanding who Malcolm was and why the nation would be appealing to him, you don't get that out of the film. You get his wayward period, and then you get him emerging as Malcolm X. So it's sort of like Malcolm, you know, he went through all of this. He was a bad guy. He did a whole bunch of bad things. He was known as Dirty Red, all of that. And or Red, and then he meets Elijah Muhammad, or communicates with him in prison, introduced to the Nation of Islam and Islam itself, and transforms. Not really, right? Malcolm is introduced to the nation by his siblings, who are not in prison at that time, or in prison in general. And they share that with him, and they share Elijah Muhammad's philosophy, which, to be clear, Elijah Muhammad's philosophy, as it is espoused by the Nation of Islam, does not necessarily represent all Islamic factions, okay? It is, you know, a version of Islam. If you go in other places, there are other versions of Islam, as some of you know. I lived in Senegal. 95% of Senegalese people are Mourid, right? They follow Sheikh Amadou Bamba, right? That's their spiritual leader. And that is the Mourid. Mouridism is a Africanized expression of Islam with an African spiritual leader, right? So you can go all over the Islamic world and find various versions of Islam, in the same way you can go all over the world and find various expressions and factions and denominations of Christianity, okay? So that being said, Malcolm is, or the nation appeals to Malcolm and his siblings because of their already existing orientation around Black nationalism and Pan-Africanism, okay? If you're impressed by your parent being in an organization Imagine how impressed you would be if they were both in that organization. And just to give you a understanding of the full impact of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, the UNIA, it was the largest Black nationalist and Pan-Africanist organization that has ever existed in the history of African people. And we're the oldest people on the earth, right? Never before or after has there been a Black nationalist and Pan-Africanist organization that has organized the African world in the numbers that the UNIA did. Okay, so that was the organization that spanned literally the African world, from the US to the Caribbean to the continent of Africa and really beyond. Okay, so Malcolm would, in essence, have embraced that philosophy in his home because his father was a staunch Garveyite and his mother was a staunch Garveyite. Clearly, the father did not bring the mother to the UNIA. The mother did not bring the father to the UNIA. They met in the UNIA, which means they both joined the organization before meeting. And I'm saying that for a reason, right? Because we already know what romantic relationships can do. They can influence us in good and bad ways. So what I'm saying is that they both had the proclivity to engage in organization for African and Black people prior to meeting each other. So that's my point of noting that. Malcolm, post-prison, would come out and immediately engage the nation, begin working for the nation. People do not talk enough about the work that Malcolm did for the nation, in the sense that he is the person who started the newspaper, title escapes me, The Final Call. He is the person who set up mosques in every city he would go to expand the nation of Islam. Okay. Once again, the nation as it existed under Elijah Muhammad would be a religious organization that had a Black nationalist orientation, because their founding member, their founder and leader, Elijah Muhammad himself, was either in and or influenced by the Universal Negro Improvement Association. And, you know, there might be people who want to push back on that, but I think that that's well established, even though, you know, I get it. When you're in a religious organization, you want to say that the person is inspired by some religious or spiritual or mission, as opposed to by other entities such as organizations. That being said, Malcolm becomes the story of return. He goes back in the from the Ghanaian or the Akan tradition, talks about, has an Adinkra symbol called Sankofa. And what does Sankofa symbolize? It symbolizes return, right? Sometimes it's the little bird that's looking at his hind or his behind, but it symbolizes going back and fetching it. And so I always say that Malcolm is absolutely a story of return, as opposed to a story of reinvention or even a story of transformation, in the sense that he was nothing and he had to transform into something worthy and worthwhile. That is not accurate. He was made of good stock and cloth and was already ideologically developed, having been raised in a certain kind of household. So he had the foundations, the values, and the principles as espoused by his brothers and sisters in Make It Plain. I would show that clip, but of course, I don't have a lot of time. So I want to share what I did put aside for this lecture. And it is an interview where Malcolm, post his pilgrimage to Mecca, is explaining a great deal about his experiences and the connection between the continent of Africa and the African population in the diaspora. And it's important to understand this because there's also a notable speech. I believe it's Message to the Grassroots, and most people begin it at a certain point. But prior to the beginning, Malcolm addresses this statement or this propaganda that is espoused about him regarding his trip to Mecca and the fact that the trip influenced him to change his philosophy about Black and white people working together. And he aptly, and this is probably why it's always classically cut out, he aptly and directly addresses the fact that he said, possibly under Islam, Black and white people can work together and live in harmony. But America is a Christian nation, purportedly, okay? Which is how they tend to identify, even down to the money, which we know is very interesting. He says, but America has not changed. So why do you think that I would have changed? America has not changed. Why would my position hasn't have changed? My posture is still the same on the issues as it relates to African and Black people in the United States. So this moment in time, 1964, is a very significant year for Malcolm. He has left the Nation of Islam. He is traveling the world. He is meeting with world leaders. I'm sure the FBI and the CIA are very, there's accounts of them saying that, hey, it was better off with him in the United States and just, going back and forth and dealing with, the civil rights versus self-defense and working for the nation, which he was no longer in at this time, keeping him sort of confined to domestic issues. But 1964 brought Malcolm X out into the world where he would meet with a number of notable African leaders, including Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah and others. He is aware of the fact that the continent of Africa is waging a number of liberation struggles. He is an alliance and allegiance with them. That is the point of him going to various countries and meeting with African leadership, leaders in the African world, leaders also in the Islamic and Muslim world. He comes back with a new and clearer understanding of our position as it relates to the world. And he is determined to make people understand that we are going to connect the struggles of African people on the continent and African people in the diaspora. Hence, he creates an organization that is similar to an existing organization established by Nkrumah and others, the Organization of African Unity, the OAU, right? And I'm sure I've addressed it in here. The OAU is born out of the Pan-African Congresses, that think tank, and the OAU emerges as a body that is intending to bring about the unity of the African continent and bring about the liberation of the African continent. Malcolm, after his whirlwind tour in 1964, would return to the United States and establish an organization called the OAAU, the Organization of African American Union, which still exists in some form today. Okay, where does he get that from? He gets that from the OAU. Okay, and he begins to work on establishing that organization, but also constructing a case around human rights to take to the United Nations. Now, I don't know how much that would do, because some may know that the United Nations is problematic in many, many ways. However, Malcolm did think that going to the United Nations and presenting a case that lists the numerous human rights violations against the African population in the United States would in fact share our story in the United States with the rest of the world, and particularly the African world. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. I'm going to share this brief, only about 7 minutes or so, or maybe 8 minutes, 7 to 9 minutes, let's say that, of this video, which shows Malcolm X giving an interview post his pilgrimage to Mecca and his whirlwind tour of the African world. And he answers several questions that will give you some understanding as to his position as a Pan-Africanist who has had the chance to step onto the world stage and communicate with world leaders and address our common issues. Okay, so that's my lecture, by the way, y'all. So Malcolm is not transformation or reinvention. Malcolm is the story of return. And so what we should think about is that, you know, what you should be getting from this seminar is a foundation in Pan-Africanism, the foundational values and principles of Pan-Africanism, right? Which means we come together, unity for the purpose of eradicating oppression and exploitation. In an organized fashion, we come together in order to strategize around eradicating our collective oppression and exploitation everywhere we are on this earth. So let me I'm gonna go off camera so I can share my screen. And I've already got it queued, so we'll do that. Let me make sure that I have the right point in it. Hold on, let me see. When I put it like this, it always eludes me the sound. So hold on. Okay. All right. All right, so I'm going to start the share, and it should be just a few minutes. I don't think I should be breaking any rules with it. In terms of, oh, where did I put my head? I shouldn't be breaking any rules in terms of
copyright.
copyright. Hold on, I haven't shared it yet. Hold on. I'm trying to get my headset so that I can make sure that I can hear it properly. Hold on 1 second. Hold on. Well, let me talk why I do this. So he comes in and he should be, and I'm putting my headset in so that I can do this. Okay. Make sure. Okay. Bear with me. Okay. All right. Share.
Prepared to go into the United Nations at this point and ask that charges be brought against the
Can you all
United
hear
States
me?
for its treatment of American
Or
Negroes.
hear the video?
Oh, yes. Please. I think you're right in my camera. The audience will have to be quiet. Yes, as I pointed out when I was during my traveling, that nations African nations and Asian nations and Latin American nations look very hypocritical when they stand up in the United Nations condemning the racist practices of South Africa and that which is practiced by Portugal and Angola, and saying nothing in the UN about the racist practices that are manifest every day against Negroes in this society. Even in South Africa, those Africans aren't faced with bayonets and aren't faced with police dogs. And when I was in Beirut, I saw a picture on the front page of a Negro being beaten in Tennessee, on the front page of the paper in Beirut. When I got to Cairo, I saw the same picture of a Negro being beaten in Tennessee. When I got to Lagos, I saw the same picture. So were these African nations knowing the brutality that is inflicted upon black people in this country, simply because those black people are trying to get what the Supreme Court said they were supposed to have 10 years ago? I would be not a man. If I was in a position to bring it in front of the United Nations and didn't do so, I wouldn't be a man.
Malcolm, do you intend to lead the charge in the United Nations?
Well, I find that to say you're going to lead something creates a lot of hostility, division, jealousy, and envy. I hope to work with any group of leaders or any group of organizations to do whatever is necessary to see that this problem is brought before the United Nations.
Have you had any commitment from any nations in Africa to support you in this move?
I would rather not say at this time. But one thing I found in my travels, all of them look upon us as their long-lost brother.
You realize the implication is that you have had such commitments when you say...
This is your interpretation of what I said. One thing that I found in all of my travels was that all of the Africans, not only Africans but the Asians and the Muslims, look upon us as their long-lost brothers. And America had actually tricked many of them into a hands-off policy by giving them the impression that she was honestly trying to do something to solve the problem. My argument over there was designed to prove that it is impossible for the United States government to solve the race problem. It's impossible for a government which has 16 senatorial committees, over which 10 are chairmaned by Southern segregationists, and 20 congressional committees, over which 12 are chairmaned by Southern segregationists. This is a segregationist, racist government that's controlled by people from the South. They can't solve the race problem.
Do you intend to take any part in the political campaign this fall?
We intend to take part in everything that will get results
at eliminating the injustices that our people are confronted with in this country. Politically, economically, anything.
Will you support candidates of either of the two parties?
We'd rather not say at this time.
Are you prepared to work with some of the leaders of the other civil rights organizations?
Certainly. Certainly. We will work with any groups, organizations, or leaders in any way, as long as it's genuinely designed to get results.
And any action on the civil rights bill, how will this affect the direction of your movement?
Any action on the civil rights bill? Well, I'm surprised that all of these civil rights groups combined haven't converged on Washington long before now. I'm surprised. If they took all the time and the expense of going down last year, singing their songs and things of that sort, before they even started the filibuster, I'm surprised that they have permitted the filibuster to go on as long as it has and have not taken any concrete actions to bring it to a halt.
Would you join another march to Washington?
Oh, yes.
You didn't last year, did you?
I didn't last year because I was a part of the Black Muslim movement, which has as its policy a hands-off attitude in becoming involved in any phase of the struggle of the so-called Negro in this country for what he feels are his rights. And my disassociation from that particular religious group gives me complete freedom to involve myself in anything that I honestly and sincerely feel is designed to get results.
How would you say this pilgrimage to Mecca has altered the course of your relations with the movement of Elijah Muhammad?
Well, I don't know. I'm not here to discuss the movement of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in any way. I would say this, that the pilgrimage at Mecca is an anthropologist, would be an anthropologist's paradise, because it's the only event and the only spot on earth that has every specimen of humanity in the same place at the same time, practicing brotherhood and in harmony. It's the only place where I've ever seen brotherhood practiced by people of all races, of everything.
Has this been a religious experience?
Definitely, I went because of my religious beliefs, and I think that I have a better understanding of my religion. I was a state guest while I was there for 12 days of Prince Faisal, who was the present leader of the government. He made everything available to me to give me every opportunity to get a better understanding of the religion of Islam. When I first got there, I was in a compound because it wasn't known that I was there. And once they found out I was there, they put me in a suite at the Jeddah Palace Hotel, gave me a car with a chauffeur and a mutawif who could speak Arabic and take me wherever I wanted. I could go back and forth between Mecca and Jeddah every night if it was my desire. I have never been given more hospitality and treated with more brotherhood than I was treated in Arabia by the Muslims there.
Does your new beard have any religious significance?
No, not particularly, but I do think that you'll find black people in America, as they strive to throw off the shackles of mental colonialism, will also probably reflect an effort to throw off the shackles of cultural colonialism, and they may begin to reflect desires of their own, with standards of their own.
Malcolm, what specific concrete move would you make that other civil rights leaders have not made to ensure passage of this civil rights bill?
Well, I frankly believe, sir, that it's not within the heart or conscience or ability. They're rope, they're becoming frustrated, they're becoming disillusioned, they're becoming disenchanted, and it's up to the government to do something to them. It's up to the government to do something about the condition. Please don't do that applauding.
You gonna keep going?
Here, I have a little bit more. Yeah, okay. Malcolm, your more controversial remarks was black and form rifle club sometime back. Do you still favor that for self-defense?
I don't see why that should be controversial. I think that if white people found themselves the victim of the same kind of brutality that black people in this country face, and they saw that the government was either unwilling or unable to protect them, that the intelligence on the part of the whites would make them get some rifles and shotguns and protect themselves. Now, Negroes are developing some kind of intellectual maturity too, and they can see that having waited upon the government to protect them has been a wait that has been in vain. So any of them who live in areas where the government is not able to do its job, then we do have to get together and do a job of protecting ourselves.
Could I ask you another question that may seem a little silly, but it's the question of the names. I think a lot of people are confused by the new Arabic name, El Hajj Malik El Shabazz.
This is always, I've always had the name on my passport, Malik El Shabazz, only I only used it in the Muslim world. Well, Hajj is a title that is given to any Muslim who makes the pilgrimage to Mecca during the official Hajj season.
Well, will you now use Shabazz and drop X?
I'll probably continue to use Malcolm X and I'll probably use it as long as the situation that produced it exists.
You don't feel that Shabazz takes the place of X?
My going to Mecca and going into the Muslim world, into the African world, and being recognized and accepted as a Muslim and as a brother may solve the problem for me personally. But I personally feel that my personal problem is never solved as long as the problem is not solved for all of our people in this country. So I remain Malcolm X as long as there is a need to protest and struggle and fight against the injustices that our people are involved in this country.
When Cassius Clay was...
I'm going to stop there. I'm going to stop there. I hope you all can still hear me. And okay. So I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to wrap up. And I hope you got something from that. That is post pilgrimage to Mecca 19. Can you all hear me? Yvonne, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Because I have my earbuds in and I just want to make sure because I know one of them is not connected. So I only one of them is connected right now. So I wasn't sure if you could hear me clearly. But point being is that so that is post pilgrimage to Mecca. And Malcolm sharing some of what he got from that as it influenced him and now in turn hopefully influenced the struggle that he participated in. And I do think you're welcome. And I think that is, one of the interviews that's least known. So I'm going to take real questions real quick. It's 12:06, so I'm 6 minutes over, which is not bad, but okay. You're welcome, Jeff. I can't see the rest of your name, but I see Jeff. Thank you for this insightful session. You're welcome, Kalo. Oh, okay, yes. Oh, welcome from Sudan. Yusuf Kalo. Wow, thank you. Thank you for joining us. Okay, so there's no other comments or questions there, but I thought it would be useful to get that tidbit firsthand and to just reframe the conversation on Malcolm. Yes, Malcolm would be considered a Black nationalist. Yes, Malcolm would be considered a Pan-Africanist. Malcolm gave a great deal of instruction and counsel to us in terms of struggle. He gave a great deal to us in terms of strategies and tactics and understanding regarding Black nationalism. And that's a whole nother conversation for another day in terms of Pan-Africanism in action. And so we should remember Malcolm X and his legacy in terms of Sankofa, a story of return. And my point of addressing this is it should inspire us to inculcate and or develop values and principles. And yes, I know that could be controversial to say develop values, but there is a way to develop, have an orientation that is centered on the values that have served us the most. Okay, and it comes from things like this, ideological development. Okay, he is a story of return in the sense that he ideologically returns to the philosophy and the values that he was raised on, as opposed to having nothing to return to, right? But we can, for those of us who don't have that foundation, can build, can establish that. So for example, you know, well, I won't even give an example. You can develop that orientation. And how does that come about? Studying, if not your own past, but the past and the history of our people, where we are living out our values and principles, living out the best of what it means to be African for us, right? So you take the best of what our people and our culture has produced, and you bring that forward, and you leave the other stuff behind, right? So that's the takeaway. Malcolm is Sankofa. And what did he return to? He returned to the principle of Black nationalism, the principles of Pan-Africanism. And one of the principles also was the belief in and value of self-defense, the right to defend oneself, you know. So I love to say that, what are we fighting for? Because some of us think we're fighting to be in the same position as non-African people, and that's not what it is. What we're fighting for is very similar to something that Malcolm said. We're fighting for the right to exist and live in this world freely and roam and move around the world free of negation on every level, man, woman, and child. Okay? We have a right to be anywhere we want to be, go anywhere we want. And when we're there and on our journey there, we have a right to be and exist free of negation on every level. And that goes from man, woman, and child, right? So free of negation meaning unviolated, okay, on every level. So very much in line with the values and principles of this organization called I Love Black People, working to protect and create safe places for African and Black people. And so you can see the ideological connections between the two, okay? So I am because we are. I'm gonna let you guys go. I'm 11 minutes over. All right, everyone. That's it for today, and I will see you all next week. And I'll post, I have 2 videos to post. Last week, the president of Guinea, I have to post that video, and then I'll post the full interview with Malcolm X, okay? All righty, thank you. I am because we are. Peace.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Wright.
Thank you.
I am because we are. Thank you. Everyone that attended. Thank you very much. And
thank you.